In this episode of the Military Mindset for Business show, I'm talking with the wonderful Shannon Hennessy. Now, Shannon is a defense partner and spouse. She's been married to an army guy for quite a while, and started an amazing business called VESPIIA. Now, VESPIIA is the Veterans Emergency Services and Police Industry Institute of Australia. Now, as military people, we are very lucky to have an organization like DVA. Not a perfect organization, but still an amazing organization and an amazing asset for our community who look after us military personnel on transition. But what about the fireys? What about the coppers and the ambos and the RFS and the SES? What happens to them on their transition? Their level of support and their level of transition support is much less than the military. So we're going to talk to Shannon today about why she created VESPIIA and why there is more in common for us as a service community than apart. So stay tuned. Listen to Shannon. G'day everybody, my name's Pete Liston and welcome to another episode of the Military Mindset for Business podcast, the podcast for the veteran business community. Today I'm talking to Shannon Hennessy. How you going, Shannon?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for coming to join me here on a cold winter's day in Sydney. Now, you're over in Perth. What's the weather like over there?
Oh, it's absolutely freezing. It's can't decide if it wants to be sunny or cloudy. It's beautiful Perth winter day.
Beautiful Perth winter day. Well, Shannon is a defense partner, like defense spouse and partner, and she's the CEO and founder of the Veterans Emergency Services and Police Industry Institute of Australia, VESPIIA. So VESPIIA is the first body of its kind to really unite military and first responders in this particular ways. And we're going to unpack what VESPIIA is, why it was created, what it does. But first of all, Shannon, I always love to ask, whereabouts did you grow up?
I grew up on the Sunshine Coast originally. So I'm from a little place called Nambour. Anyone who knows where Nambour is, please don't judge me.
Hang on,
It's about
Nambour was like inland country.
inland, yeah.
So
we lived on the main highway as you went up to Montville, Maleny.
yeah.
And went to school down there. And then I moved to Brisbane literally the day that I graduated high school. Like I was out of there immediately.
Get TF out of there. Hang on, is Nambour, is that Big Pineapple?
Yes, that's probably about 15, 20 minutes from where I grew up. Yeah.
15, 20. So it's like
very close.
So I live at Erina, which is just sort of like a little bit west of Terrigal. But I always say, I'm from Terrigal because Terrigal's like the beach and a beautiful spot. But really, I'm just a little bit west. But Nambour, I can imagine Nambour's a little bit more rodeo than bikini sometimes.
Well, look, it was the end of the train line. So it was, it's not known for anything beautiful. I always say that I grew up about half an hour inland of Noosa.
Yeah.
So, because Noosa's the bit that people know and like it's beautiful beaches and a bit yuppie and whatever. And then I'm like, oh, I just inland of that, just skirt around the subject a bit.
So, Queensland girl, how did you cross paths with the military? How did you get into this life or associated with this life?
Oh, I met a boy.
Met a boy?
The simple version of it.
In Brisbane?
In Brisbane, yeah. So we met 4 months before he enlisted. So we met and were in early stages of dating. He was in his initial, like he was going through his interviews. Like I drove him to his fitness test. Got a hefty parking fine while I waited as well. Almost got towed. And yeah, so 3 or 4 months to the day from our first date, he marched out. He marched in, sorry, and went off to Kapooka for 3 months. And yeah, that's sort of been it from there.
So
held on for the ride.
So you guys are dating. A couple of months into it, he disappears down to Kapooka for what, probably 12 weeks or something like that.
Yeah, it was about 3 months. Yeah.
Then he gets posted into a battalion. Where does he get posted to?
Well, he actually initially went to his IETs.
So
he went down to Melbourne actually. He was down there at the SIG school for a year. And then so we did long distance. I was set to move down to Melbourne because we thought he was going to be there for closer to 2 years. And I'm packing up my house and ready to move, and there was some stuff with the people I was meant to move in with. It all fell apart, and he goes, "Oh well, I found out today I'm only going to be here for 12 months. So maybe you don't move down." And so I'm frantically finding a house in Brisbane to stay for another sort of 11 months, I think it was, and we posted here to Perth, and we've been here ever since. So we just hit the 10-year mark here in Perth. So.
Okay, so 10 years in Perth. He's an army guy, so let's just say this story will be all about you and not about him.
Yeah. If you know, you know. He so at least for people in the West, he works over the road. But it's set us up with a really good life here. So I'm happy to talk about my side of this, and his job's pretty boring anyway. So it's fine.
Pretty boring. Pretty boring. But I'm interested to unpack a little bit this, because I'm super interested in, the veteran community as a whole, and, particularly partners and spouses. It's the army jerks and the pussers and the raffies that get the medals, but it's the partners and spouses that serve, in their own right as well. How did so a bit of a long distance relationship for 18 months or so. Is Perth the first time that you guys moved in together?
Yeah, absolutely. It was, everything in, and we weren't de facto at the time either, because we hadn't had a chance to live together, and that's sort of the main criteria, at least was at the time. So I packed up everything. We paid for the move ourselves, or my half of it. And I moved to the other side of the country, and I did no research really. I just called me in Perth, didn't really know what to expect. I had a job lined up. I was working in hospitality as one of my jobs at the time. So I had a bar lined up ready to go, but didn't have a car. I didn't have anything. Most of the furniture we'd moved down to his mum's place, which was his listed address. So we did a bit of a cheeky. A lot of my stuff got uplifted with his. But he found us, he got here about 2 weeks prior to me. Found us an apartment in the city, and I got on a plane, and that was it.
Yeah. So I'm just looking at the dates here. That's about 2015. The army is still absolutely operational. Afghanistan's still kicking off. There's all sorts of other things happening in the world. As a partner, how long did it take before you found yourself as a partner of someone deployed?
Thankfully, deployment-wise, that took probably about 8 years. His first deployment wasn't until sort of semi-recently, but it was over Christmas as well. So we did a 4-month stint over to the Middle East, and it was really interesting, but also kind of non-eventful in a sense in comparison to most of our relationship at that point. That the work that he was doing, before he went through course and things like that, he was away all the time on training. And I think we kind of almost pinpoint this as oh, well, he goes away, therefore it's deployment. It's well, actually, there's a lot of courses, and there's a lot of training, and there's all these other things that happen that, the first 3 months that we were here, he was home for maybe 3 weeks of it. We got here, I was here for maybe a week or two, he went for 6 weeks. And that was just on a training course. And then he came back for a week, and then he was off on something else. And then, even in the last few years, most of last year, he was gone. I think he was probably home for maybe 3 or 4 months of the year, because he was traveling for courses and for training and for capability development stuff. There's all these other things that go into it that when his deployment came around, oh, it's only 4 months. Oh, okay, yeah, cool, see ya. Yeah, I mean, you missed Christmas, but it's just the two of us. We don't have children. So it was a bit of a bummer, but it was fine. I went and spent the day with some friends, and it was all good. So 4 months for us, as a continuous stint, was probably longer than we'd experienced in a long time, but accumulatively, that was nothing. So I've been lucky in that regard, and I think that sort of where defence is at the moment, deployments, especially for people in the West, are a little bit different. Thankfully, not as scary. But, there's so much else that goes into just the general life of it that, at least in my experience, and I admit I've had quite a unique experience as a spouse, that deployment was a blip. It barely registered.
It's funny though, because it's one of the reasons that ultimately led to my personal transition out was I started having little kids. And again, it's not so much the deployments, it is ships need to go to sea and planes fly overseas and soldiers go bush. And
Mhm.
if you're not doing stuff with the unit, if you're not out there, doing whatever exercise, and I think at this time Talisman Sabres kicking off, up in Queensland. But that in itself could be 6 or 8 weeks, let alone your career courses, which could be another month or two, let alone
Yeah.
anything the specialty that you're doing. So it is just partner life is a way life. How did you find the partner spouse community, and how did you find getting involved with it? What's it like from your perspective?
Yeah. Excuse me, just a quick cough. Um, yeah, look, it honestly, it took me a couple of years to settle in Perth. It was probably about 2.5 years before I really found my footing here. Um, and I've sort of spoken about this quite a lot throughout my career as well. That sort of sentiment of what you're getting yourself into, like it's absolutely untrue. Like I had no clue what to expect, and I think that especially with trying to find your place in a community that is dependent on somebody else
Yeah.
is really difficult. That it was probably about 3 years until I went to my first like spouse night briefing.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a welcome to the West sort of event, and I was like, oh, this is the first time they've ever done it. And no, it turns out they do it every year, but they gave my like the information to my now husband, and it sat in the bottom of his backpack, and then it got pulled out 3 months later. Like, oh, cool, that would have been good to know about
Yeah.
this,
Nice. Would have been good to know. Thanks for that.
Yeah, and especially when we moved here, we were quite young. We were in our early 20s. Um, a lot of the people that he was serving with at the time were also young men in their 20s, and they weren't in relationships. They weren't
Yeah.
spouses. So it took a couple of years, and for a while there, I almost found myself being a bit of a mother hen in a way, like welcoming the new girls in.
Yeah.
That as they met their partners, and it was sort of an initiation in a way. And hey, like here's all the information you need to know. And by this time, I was already working in ex-service organizations as well. So I had this really tough time of drawing a boundary in a sense of what I can do professionally versus what I can do as your friend, and
Yeah.
making sure those lines didn't blur. So I genuinely, I really struggled for a long time. I struggled with employment as well. That I learned very quickly that I had to stop saying why we moved to Perth. Why you moved to Perth? Like, what's here for you? And like, oh, we moved for my partner's work. What does he do? Oh, he's in the military. Like, oh, I've just given myself a time limit. And
Yeah. Got it.
we watched the interview shut down in front of me. So you're trying to find something steady employment wise was really hard. So where I'd come from Brisbane, having this massive group of friends that I'd made through work, because I worked at the same company for a long time, I'd moved away, and everybody's now moving away. They're a bit older than me. They're getting married. They had kids. So life is changing, and then all of a sudden, I'm in this community that I know nothing about. And with him traveling, my husband traveling all the time, how do you meet the people who are in if he's not home to introduce me?
Yeah.
There weren't, at least that I could find, like Facebook groups and things like that. And the auxiliary and some of these other groups that were meeting, they were play groups. So they were meeting at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday,
Yeah.
which is perfectly fine if you're
For
at
the
home
mums
with
with
the
the kids.
kids.
Yeah.
But I wasn't, I was working. And so it did take a long time, and it was really tough. There were certainly times where you kind of question whether or not you're resilient enough to carry through that. It was never a question of my relationship with my husband, but it was I just wanted to go home to what I had before we came to Perth, how everything was, but that didn't exist either because everybody else had moved on. So it took time. It was really hard. I think now, sort of 10 years on, I'm really quite blessed that I've got a really fantastic group of friends, both who are spouses of the people that my husband serves with, but in my own right. Funnily enough, I've sort of gravitated a lot of my really close friends now. They're either also partners of veterans, or most of the children of veterans. They've had something to do with defence in the past, and you kind of find your people in and around that. And Perth is a really tough place as well. I'll sort of caveat that as well, that Perth is hard to exist socially as a new person anyway. So yeah, it certainly took longer than I had ever anticipated. And it took a good few years to really build this community around myself. But it's everything now that I have these people who really understand sort of where you come from with a lot of these things.
Did you find much of instead of being Shannon, you were, I don't know what rank your husband is, like private X's wife or Mrs. Private, Mrs. Corporal, whatever, instead of being Shannon? Like, does your life get somehow infused into that life? Or are you able to keep your individuality pretty separate?
It was a bit of both. I think I think it came down to the people who were around me at the time and the people that I made friends with, that I did make friends with them in my own right. And I think Perth culturally as well isn't as you hung up on rank or your position, especially within you want, like, once you're outside the gates kind of thing, that I'm not even sure I really know what rank my husband is at this point. I'm sure I do, but it's just not something that gets talked about, things like that. And it's you so and so's missus, like, as a, like, that's the connection. I think I found it more interesting in the last few years throughout my career, I guess, because I've worked so much in veteran support and defence industry, that I've met people, and I didn't change my surname, so I've kept my maiden name after we got married, sort of 5 years ago. So I've met people, and I've had clients that have come on board through your other means, and you're chatting, went, oh yeah, this is where my husband serves, and this is what he does. I'm like, oh, I used to serve there. What's his name? I'm like, oh, it's this. Oh, I used to serve with him. Like, I know, like, we're really close friends. I'm like, oh, I had no idea. Like, this connection of, like, Perth is really small. Everybody knows everybody, but I think I've been quite lucky that I've been able to kind of create this space for myself, that I know a lot of what I know because I'm a spouse, but I'm myself first, and as a professional, I'm the work that I am first, and I just happen to be married to this person. So I think I've been quite lucky in that regard. And we do have such a great community here that everybody is friends in their own right. I guess it's not contingent on who you're married to. It's just this is the thing that brings us together in this particular community, especially as spouses. But you have had really great opportunity to form these friendships one-on-one.
So with your career, I'm always interested in the pathways into business, and, as we start up enterprises. VESPIIA came a little bit later. Tell us about your career and how your career profile led to the experience of having that light bulb moment to see VESPIIA as a need and want to start creating it.
I've had a really interesting career. If you look at my CV or my LinkedIn, it's it's an interesting journey that I've been on. So I straight out of school, I worked for EB Games for 7 years, and I sold video games, and I was really very good at it.
You a gamer yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. That's how I spend my weekends. If I have to leave the house, I'm pretty unhappy about it. But it was sort of my dad was a gamer growing up, the early PC games and things like that. So it was really natural progression.
And to be honest, if your husband's spending so much time away, that's the perfect excuse. There's no one to judge. I'm just going to game all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Thankfully, he's a gamer as well. Not so much these days, but had that sort of shared hobby, I guess, which was great. So I sort of came up in retail and was pretty convinced that was my life. Right, like, I loved it. Your life sort of had other plans, and I'd kind of run my course with the company, and at that point, my now husband was through in his ITs. Like, we knew he was going to be posting. And the job that I was doing at EB Games at the time, I could only do in Brisbane. I was working in their home office. So it kind of got to this point of, all right, well, I've got to do something different. I ended up going back into hospitality. I'd done that as a kid. You're working in bars and restaurants and things like that. And that's what I did when I came over. And like I said, I bounced around a lot when I got here, and I did a 6 month stint in recruitment. Called someone a wanker in an email, and was promptly asked to leave, which, I maintain the guy he deserved
Off to HR. Off to
to be
HR.
called that. Yeah. Yeah, I had a 6-month probation and I was like 5.5 months in. They're like, oh, we're just going to finish you up here. I went, you know what? That's good because this job sucks. I hate it. Recruitment's not for me. And I actually found myself working in a hotel, running event programs, and then really leaning into the event piece. And I'd been offered the dream job, which was going to a restaurant and starting my own event program. It was going to be great. And I walked into this kitchen nightmares situation. I don't know if you've seen that Gordon Ramsay show.
Yeah.
That's absolutely was things are being served out of tins and it's awful. And I went to the owner, so I was like, this is not conducive to what you want me to do. Like, if you want me to bring high-end events, I can't do this. Like, this has got to change. And I get a call a few days later. I'm 6 weeks into the job, and they go, well, we've actually just reviewed the budget and we can't afford you. And I went, oh, okay, cool. Cheers. I'll be on my way then. He's like, I feel just as bad about this as you do. And I was like, well, you didn't just lose your job, so I don't think that you do. But okay, it's fine. It is what it is. So I found myself unemployed again. And this is where sort of the veterans piece really comes in to my life, that a couple of years prior, I had unfortunately lost a childhood friend of mine to his PTSD. He'd made that ultimate choice, and we were really close friends in high school, and he went off and joined the army. He was a couple of years older. Joined the army, and we lost contact, and I moved and all these sorts of things. And he did I think 2 tours of Afghanistan and one of Iraq, and just wasn't himself when he came back. And when I sort of entered the relationship with my husband, he was this person that I was always like, I should reach out.
Yeah.
Like, I should just contact him and see how he's doing, because I'm a part of this community, and that seems like a great way to touch base, I guess. So I want to learn from him and see how he's doing, and I hear on the grapevine that things aren't great, but I never did. Life gets in the way, and there was some personal politics at play, and I just hadn't. And he passed away, and I had all of these feelings around his death that I just didn't know what to do with. That and I think we experience this a lot when we lose someone in this way, that what if I had just reached out? What if the phone call was the thing that saved him? And these are things that are not inherently true. Like, a lot of therapy has told me that my reaching out, it wasn't going to be the thing. And where he was in that point, my reaching out probably wouldn't have changed anything. There was a lot going on and a lot that I've learned since his passing, that I was never going to be able to impact him in any way in that point.
It doesn't mean that you don't question and shoulda, woulda, coulda, but didn't, and take
exactly
that own personal guilt, irrespective of whether,
yeah, exactly. A bit of that guilt of what if I could have done something, and that kind of led me down this point of I'm sitting there and I'm unemployed and I'm on Instagram, and an organization, Soldier On, pops up on my Instagram, and I look into it, and that was exactly their mission, was to prevent veteran suicide. And I thought, well, maybe this is somewhere I can channel my energy. So it's been about 1.5 years at this point since I've lost my friend, and it still pops into my mind all the time around this weird grief that I don't feel I deserve, in a sense. So because we hadn't talked in years. So like, where can I put this energy? And then how can I make something out of it that might be meaningful, So I reached out and said, hey, I'm unemployed right now. I'd love to volunteer. I don't know if you have an office here in Perth, but I can work remote. I've got a little laptop. I run events. Like, this is my skill set. Here's my CV. Let me know what you think. And they came back and said, look, we actually don't have any volunteer positions right now, but we do have a paid position if you'd like to be considered. And I went, did you miss the part where I'm unemployed? Yes, please. Thank you. That would be great.
Sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, cool. Sign me up. So I ended up getting that position. It started out as an administrative position that I was just going to be doing office admin and assisting events. There was a bit of drama in the very beginning, and within about 3 or 4 weeks, I was running the office for WA. It was sort of a make or break for us, that do we shut this office down, or do I take the reins and just see what I can make of it? And I did the latter, and that was 3 years with them running your social programs and the employment program as well. So that recruitment piece came in handy in the end there, which I didn't anticipate for my career, but helping your veterans transition and all these sorts of things. And sort of at the end of that 3 years, I was really burnt. It was a lot. I was supporting about 300 people on my own, really, here in the West, and I had some great supports within the organisation, but on the ground here, it was just me. So I did a weird sidestep. I was like, I've done my piece in veterans. Like I've kind of made my peace with everything. A lot had happened in that time. Again, like I said, a lot of therapy to kind of reconcile a lot of my feelings around some of the stuff that happened, and was very at peace with the work that I had done. That I'd set a lot of these systems up, and I'm thrilled about that and the work that we were able to achieve. And so I actually sidestepped and went to the Planning Institute of Australia, which is the peak body for town planners. And it's at the time you'd never think that, like, look back, like, how is that going to be relevant? Turns out it's one of the most relevant sidesteps I've ever had in my life, which helped me build VESPIIA. But I was their event coordinator, and COVID hit, and now I'm sitting at home for 4 months, twiddling my thumbs trying to stay relevant because can't do my job. I got poached at that time to go over to Legacy WA, and my CEO was like, I want you to run fundraising and marketing. Never done that in my life. I don't know what to do. Turns out it's just fancy events. So I'm great at it. I love it. I have a great time with that. Yeah, like, it was easy. We had COVID's still very much a thing, so it's challenging in these ways that I haven't experienced before. But and looking at the family side of it again as well, that come from directly supporting the veteran, and now looking at supporting the families that are left behind. And so it's just really healing in this way to see that, to be able to contribute and build to something that I may one day rely upon. That's such a unique motivator that I'm in a way setting the future for myself and my community. The people that are in my life are going to need this. And so that was fantastic. I was there for about 18 months. And decided to sort of go out on my own and do some consulting in defence industry. I went to the state government for a couple of months there, and ended up working for a member of the WA State Legislative Committee, so the upper house here in Parliament. So I know this is a bit long-winded journey to get to VESPIIA, but it's all relevant because along this way, throughout being in ESOs and in industry and all these sorts of things, we were joking about these sort of challenges that we come up against, or these pitfalls that we're seeing, and these gaps that exist. I'm like, oh, who should be able to solve that problem? Well, it's peak body. Oh, who would do that? Well, it's the body, like the industry body. And so I get to this point in late 2022, working for my member, and I'm putting together a proposal for the state government that says we need to review the suicide action plan, or your prevention plan, for Western Australia, because it doesn't include first responders. We've got a little bit about veterans, but you have this first responder cohort. Through all my research, all these papers that I'm reading, this is really, that we're well behind in this discussion. So I'm going through, and I get to this point, I'm like, this is never going to work. This proposal includes like 4 portfolios, like 6 or 7 departments, just to review a single plan. It's never going to get up. It's way too hard. I can see that the administrative construct now, that like, it's who's going to pay for this and all these sorts of things. No one's going to go for it. And I go back to the 2019 Productivity Commission report, and there's a recommendation in there about raising a peak body. And I went, what? We've talked about this for so long. And I reflect back on my time in ESOs, where I felt on my own, that yes, I was technically by myself running all of these programs, but I had to build this community from scratch. The colleagues and the network that I have now was, I walked in with nothing, and I've walked away with this. And how much better would my life have been, and my career, and how much easier would the work have been, and potentially how many more people could I have reached if I didn't have to spend so much time working on all of this background stuff of going to networking events and meeting people and figuring out who to email and all this sort of stuff. And looking back at the time at the Planning Institute, well, it was my job to raise professional development events. So training and all these sorts of things, like that doesn't exist for us. Like, how do I get better at my job? Through this time, I'd been a member of the Fundraising Institute for several years as a professional fundraiser. I got the chance to sit on the National Board for the Public Relations Institute of Australia, which is now rebranded, but I was with them for about a year. So I'm seeing all these other professions that have these institutes. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Why don't we have this? It can't be that hard. So, throw caution to the wind, and I write a case paper and I go, this is what I want to do. And we built it from there. So I was really born out of this frustration of, I've been there and I've done it and I get it. Why is it so hard? I hate that it's so hard. Let's fix it. And that's
one of the things I'm
exactly what we built.
Really interested in this path is a lot of people like rag on Department of Veteran Affairs. And to be honest, it's an organization with flaws. It's a heavy bureaucratic organization, and it's got a tough gig. But I honestly believe that as military personnel, we are extremely lucky to have DVA and the framework for transitioning veterans, regardless of whether you're actually deployed or not. Now, over the last period of warfare, there has been, incredible, trauma, and there's been a lot of young men and women and older men and women who have carried a lot of that weight. But let's not forget that coppers and fireys and ambos do this every day. Now, like, my military career was, I dare say, minimally traumatic relative to what other people have been through. Like, absolutely, I say that I'm not an infantryman and I'm not a warfighter. I was a logistics officer, so I wasn't exposed to those roles. But as an average beat copper, walking into DV situations and car accidents and ambos, turning up to all sorts of scenes, and fireys, who's there for them? They don't have DVA. They don't have this body or framework. Yeah. And one of the things I nearly talk to every first responder I meet, I'm like, well, tell me about your transition support. And a lot of it's missing, as well as missing because it's 6 states and a couple of territories. It's fragmented. Is that 6 states?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Yeah. So tell us so now you've seen the problem. What is VESPIIA?
Yeah, so VESPIIA is an industry institute or industry body for organizations, staff, professionals who are working to support our service communities.
Yeah.
So that's to say, anyone who's volunteering for an ex-service organization, padres who have service members and families in their congregations or in their communities, academics who are doing research in these areas, governments, agencies, industry, people who are employing veterans, veteran-owned businesses. Like, it is really robust, the people that we are working to support. So for us, it's basically, if you're on the ground trying to support veterans and first responders and their families in any way, we want you to be a member of VESPIIA.
Yep.
So our sort of the core things that we work on, delivering our professional development, networking, community events, the recognition of the work that's happening through our rewards program, your large-scale professional development. Like, we're hosting a conference later this year in October, the Future Frontlines conference. We're building resources for people to access. Basically, you're creating enablers for you to do your job, in a sense. Because you're right, there, especially for first responders, part of the advocacy work we've been doing. So we do a lot in the sort of policy space.
Yep.
We try to be quite proactive on that, and we've been doing a lot of discussion in the first responder space. And what we're finding is that they're probably about 10 years behind veterans. Yeah. So where we've spent the last decade and however many billions of dollars investing in transition support, some of our agencies, first responder agencies, are just starting to ask these questions. So aside from retirement, there isn't anything. So how are we raising these topics, and how we're raising with government? You're right that, like, every state is different and every agency is different as well. So it's not just that you're contending with the different state and territory governments. You're also dealing with 3 different compensation schemes for each agency, and each agency operates a little bit differently in each state. But one of the really
you've got, like, Well, sorry, after you, Shannon.
Oh, just one of the really interesting things that we're finding is the crossover rates are tremendous. That we're estimating about 10% of West Australian police are veterans, about 30% of career firefighters, and about 40% of our Army Reserve unit are full-time first responders. Like, these are not separate communities. It is
I never
so
clicked
intertwined.
I never clicked that those rates were so high. So
Yeah.
10% of coppers, was that 10% of coppers, 30% of fireys?
Yeah.
And again, because we do recognize service as service. And if you're serving in the reserves, that's still service. You're still putting on the uniform and signing the check. How do you find that it works? Because if we've got, is SES counted as a first responder?
Yep, absolutely.
So we've got basically, then you've got RFS as well, I guess. So we might have up to 5 different agencies in each state times 6 or 7. So we've got like 30 odd different agencies all going their own direction. Is there much cross-pollination or sharing of resources across the services and then across the states?
No, absolutely not. And I think that's a huge problem that VESPIIA is trying to solve on a few different levels, is that, that information sharing across states, across agencies, across services, it doesn't exist. It does on a sort of a lower level, but where we need it to be sort of from the strategic perspective, it's just not where it should be. It's not what we're sort of, especially coming in from this defense standpoint, it's nowhere near what we're experiencing in defense. Excuse me. Where we're trying to information share as well as between what we've learned in veterans over to first responders as well, that we've had all of this experience. We're estimating upwards of 5,000 ex-service organisations across Australia that have a primary remit of supporting veterans or veterans' families. From what we can find, for every 500 ex-service organisations, there's maybe 2 that focus on first responders. So even the non-profit side, it doesn't exist. And you're talking to fireys and to AMBOs on the ground and be like, hey, so like, where do you go for support? And like, oh, the agency has psychs or has some support. Like, no, I mean, like, outside of it, how veterans can go to the RSL, or you go to Soldier On, or or any number of programs or organizations. Like, where are you guys going? And they're like, oh, well, there might be a Facebook group here and there, but it's not really something we've got. And it's kind of these things that we've taken for granted, I guess, in the veteran side, that we're so used to these organizations. And even going back to your point about DVA, that we're so used to having these things that we can kind of, we're almost in this place of privilege that we get to reform DVA, that it has its troubles, but geez, it's come a long way in the last 10 years from where we were to your presumption of mental health conditions and certain your physical conditions, your hearing loss and tinnitus and things like that. What the white card now covers just off the bat, that doesn't exist in first responders. Like, we're still, here in the West, we're still fighting for presumption of PTSD across these services. In firefighters, like the compensation schemes, even for women, men are covered for certain cancers and carcinogens where women aren't, because the evidence doesn't exist, because the sample pool is too small, because that takes a lot of time and effort to do this research. So where we're just so used to DVA or to ESOs being there, I mean, almost in this position of privilege to complain and go, these things are wrong with it, we need to reform it. That's fantastic. Of course, we want that. But for first responders, we're so far behind. So for us as an institute, I think that's become such a focus point for us to try and elevate the conversation, to at least try and bring things even forward a couple of years, to raise some of these things and work with ESOs potentially to expand their remit, that you already exist and you're already doing a fantastic job. What does it take for us to get you to include first responders in your remit? Is a funding issue? Do we need to talk to government about this? Like, is it just your constitution? Like, how do we support you and potentially in opening this up, and for organisations that are existing here, like Buddy Up, Fortum Australia, and a few others, how are we helping to amplify the work that you do to cross-pollinate. So there's just a massive body of work that needs to be done. And this is really why we've taken this institute model as well, versus just being a peak body that focuses on ESOs. This whole ecosystem has to exist and it has to work conducively, and it doesn't currently. So that's why we're looking so broadly across academia and industry and government and an agency and ESOs, that all of this has to work together in tandem, and it has to work together nationally and at a strategic level to affect long-term change.
We're going to a couple of things that you just mentioned is the automatic presumption with the white card of mental health care. And again, I'm the way that we built the veteran business community is we don't care whether you're reservist or full-time or Army, Navy, Air Force rank. We don't care if you've been in deployments or not. But there is a reality that the operational tempo, and look, there's probably things in the world going on with the Army that I have no idea about, and people going into harm's way and that all the time. So I don't want to be too dismissive, but at this current phase, when we don't have Iraq, Afghanistan, East Timor, and a more broader national application of violence, that there is still that presumption of mental health care for veterans, when again, the fireys and ambos and coppers who see trauma, I don't know how often, but weekly, monthly, surely a lot more than the current serving military, but they don't get that same presumption. I think that's, just something to reflect on again and I'm not trying to play one team against the other, but again, reflecting on what we have half glass full as the veteran community and what they don't have half glass empty.
It is easy to be half glass empty, and like all to see what we still have to overcome, like the things that still are yet to be achieved, and to reflect that it's not an invalidation of someone else. It's not an invalidation of defence and what they're experiencing at the moment, because there's still struggles in that. There's a lot that goes into it, but to recognise that there are additional conversations that we need to have and different experiences across services that are just as valid.
Now, you mentioned Soldier On before as having a pivotal impact in the start of your career, and you also mentioned Fortum. Now, I believe Fortum was started by the same bloke. John Bale, is that his name? I don't know John.
Yeah,
never met him.
I've only met him once or twice myself as well. So,
but what does Fortum do?
So Fortum, I believe, was raised as the sister organisation to Soldier On. So Fortum was sort of raising towards the end of my tenure with them and after I'd left. And we are quite lucky to have Lara Chambers, who's the regional manager for Western Australia, on our board of directors.
Oh, fantastic.
So basically it's just the flip side of it. It's similar programming, psychosocial support, employment support, all these sorts of things, but for first responders.
So whereas you're looking at from the sort of institute, how we can pull this together from a policy perspective, being rather a unifying force, Fortum's on the ground. Would that be a good way to describe it, actually providing services to people?
Absolutely. So that's the biggest point of difference for VESPIIA, is that we technically are not an ex-service organisation. In that we will never deliver directly to veterans and first responders in that capacity. If they happen to be professionals in the space, they're working in these organisations and they are veterans, that's fantastic, but we're not supporting them as the veteran. It's kind of a tricky distinction to make, but absolutely, So we work to support people like Lara and Fortum in their work from that professional standpoint, while they're busy on the ground, cracking on supporting first responders.
Tell us about the Future Frontlines conference that you're running. I've got here 3rd of October in Perth.
Absolutely. I'm thrilled about this. This has kind of been a pet project. So last year, the first pet project was the Awards for Excellence, which we raised. And then this year we've got even bigger with adding in the Future Frontlines conference. So Future Frontlines for us is sort of all of our policy advocacy work and our strategic work. So that's the papers that we release, our own podcast, things like that is all under that Future Frontlines banner. So this year we're doing our very first full day conference. So Future Frontlines Momentum Matters. We're really focusing on 1 year post Royal Commission report. So that's the Royal Commission into Defence and Veteran Suicide. with the final report releasing sort of September of last year. What we're focusing on for the content of this conference is what's happened in that year. So what progress has been made, what discussions have been had, what decisions have been made. So what's the update on all of that? And what's the focus moving forward? So from our speakers, we've got the West Australian Minister for Veterans Issues, Corrections and Fire and Emergency Services, Minister Paul Papalia. He'll also be representing Minister Reece Whitby, the Minister for Police, as your Minister Papalia is the former Minister for Police here. So talking on the state level from the Western Australian perspective, what we're working on here, we'll have a video address from Minister Matt Keogh, the Minister for Veterans Affairs and Defence Personnel. So talking on that federal level of what's achieved. There's been a lot happening in the last few months around co-design groups for wellbeing agencies, even peak bodies, what's happened, this legislative reform that's coming through, these Senate reviews, like what's happened in the last year and what is the federal government going to be prioritising moving forward. We've got Charlotte Webb, who's the CEO for Defence Families Australia. She's going to be, again, talking about the family perspective. So we're really excited to kind of bring these discussions to the forefront and being able to do it in a conference setting, for especially for ESOs or people working to support veterans from a wellbeing perspective. This hasn't been done before. There have been academic conferences that are more focused on suicide prevention and mental health, which is fantastic. This is looking at overarching what's happening in this sector. So we'll also have a couple of workshops running, your research briefings, your grants 101, that sort of thing, which will be fantastic. We've got a few panels yet to announce, and that'll also lead into our awards for excellence for 2025 as well. Submissions are now open for that. So we've got 17 award categories. So massive award program, but it's looking at the full scope of what happens in the sector. That for us, recognition of your work is paramount, that these opportunities don't always exist on this kind of level. That, yes, there's the awards around employment transition, which is fantastic, but we're, again, looking at the full scope of work that happens. So we're really excited to bring that for a second year, into 2025. So it'll be a huge day, and tickets are available for our website. And just thrilled to be able to bring it.
We'll make sure that we plug that and get all the details, particularly in the show notes, but also on our socials as it gets closer. There's one thing that keeps just ringing through my mind listening to you, and it's like birds of a feather flock together. You've, married a guy who's chosen a service career. And again, I just want to come back to this point about partners and spouses and the journey that they go on, somewhat unrecognized for their service to the nation as well. And, I'm a pretty patriotic kind of guy. I have the Aussie flag in the back there, but I think as a community, one of the best things we can do is to really be like a lighthouse, and you see it, you can be it, because ultimately it's these, examples of success and other people getting out there and contributing that makes the fabric of the community what it is. So, and someone said to me a while back, PTSD stands for post-team separation disorder, and then when you are together with your team and you're doing it, sometimes it's even a bit humorous, a bit of dark humor, laugh about this and that. But it's when you're by yourself and, when the team's gone, that the sort of maybe the reality sets in a little bit. So, Shannon, I can't compliment you enough. And like, what's next? Like, there's more to do than can ever be done in this space. What's your priorities? What's the next thing for you and for VESPIIA?
Look, at the moment, it's just we're going to keep going. Right now, I think, you're right. The work is almost insurmountable, and it's terrifying to kind of confront how much needs to be done. But two large projects that we're working on at the moment are raising a few special interest working groups. One is around the Padres. You trying to create a better network for our faith leaders and service chaplains to interact nationally. It's just going to be you delivering more events, more PD, more advocacy, just doing more of what we're doing now. And you're hopefully getting some funding behind us as well. Look, that's the never-ending battle of nonprofit.
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
how do we fund this thing long term? So we hope more people choose to become members of VESPIIA, and to join us, in all of this work that we're doing. I think for us, yeah, there's no other mission than just getting through it.
Yeah.
That it has to be done. I think it's going to be an interesting year with some of the things that are coming out of DVA, like I mentioned, around some of this discussion about a peak body for ESOs. What does that mean for us, and how do we exist within it? No matter what happens, we're going to continue on. We're very confident in our remit that while ESOs are a huge part and a massive part of what happens in the veteran space, the entire ecosystem is just as deserving of support. So how are we setting the future up for success, I guess, that raising the bar of standard that's delivered to our service communities, assisting organisations raising to support first responders, enabling these policy discussions. It's a lot, but we're determined to continue on and get it done.
Yeah, I'll pick up a couple of points there. So number one, fundraising, like for any good cause, this needs to be supported. So if you're interested in supporting VESPIIA fundraising, like jump on their website. But one thing you also mentioned before was joining the team. Now you guys are doing something much better than me, that you've actually got a range of are they the range of join the VESPIIA team voluntary positions, I can imagine?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
everything's 100% volunteer right now,
Yeah.
including myself. So
if you are interested in actually getting involved, jump onto the VESPIIA website, hit contact, and you'll see, joining the team there, because there are some roles to help out, whether you be a marketing comms specialist, you know a little about grants and fundraising, membership, governance, events. This is great work, doing great things, run by great people. And again, I'll come back to it. I think as the veteran community, the military veteran community, we have a bit of an obligation to share and bring our first responders brethren along the path with us. And having said that, I would love to see a day that, we could expand the veteran business community across into first responders as well. So for me, I'm trying to do one thing good at the moment and build a military community. But as soon as we have, again, traction and a solid model, I see it could be very simple to, copy, paste, change the color, and bring, support others into this community as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like I sort of mentioned before, that the community is so intertwined as well, that for us, we're trying to use the term service more broadly, that you're right. If you're willing to serve in one, you're willing to serve in another, really, in one capacity or another. And in my opinion, that absolutely extends to spouses and to family as well, that we're not on the front line, but we are willing to make the same sacrifices in a sense, and you pay the same price for that service. So the value set that exists across both communities, it's the same, and it's at the core of it. It's about doing something meaningful for your community and country, and I think that's just a wonderful thing. It's one of my favorite things about the service community.
Yeah. Look, Shannon, I wanted to say thanks for your time today. If you want to get in touch with Shannon and have a look at the work she's doing, VESPIIA.org. That's Victor Echo Sierra Papa India Alpha.org. Jump on there. We'll also share Shannon's LinkedIn and all the other social notes around that as well. And just on that note, I just want to do a quick acknowledgement of service, before we head off. And just recognize, the people in our community that, that voluntarily, even if it's for a job, even if it is your job, you volunteer to do these jobs, that put on these uniforms. So those that put themselves, before others, those that commit to putting on the line, regardless of whether you're first responder or military or, anything like that. And also to the families and kids of those people as well. Whether you're a copper doing, night shift, and every, twice a week you're doing dog watch, or whether you're a fiery on call, ready to go out, or because the thing is, sometimes we, not dismiss, but particularly coppers, like a lot of people might have a negative, oh, bloody coppers or this and that. But I tell you what, if you're in trouble, who's the first person you're going to call.
Absolutely.
So, and Ambos, like these are just great people that are really building the fiber of our community. Shannon, a real pleasure to have you on today. Love learning more
Thank you
about
for having
VESPIIA.
me.
No, it's been great. And thank you for everything that you're doing. I know that you've got a big weight on your shoulders here. But again, I just can't come back to that birds of a feather flock together and the way that us as a community just seem to bump into other people with the same values and ideals.
Absolutely. It's the thing that draws us all together is those values. And it's been absolutely wonderful meeting so many more people in our community. You're across all the work that's being done, and you yourself, Pete, with the veterans business community. It's fantastic to be a part of it. And yeah, I'm really excited to see what the future brings all of us.
I love it. Okay, so let's call it a wrap there. We'll have all the details about how to get in touch with Shannon and how to learn about VESPIIA and the work that they do on our socials and in the show notes below. If you're watching this on YouTube, we love all that click, like, share stuff. If you want to comment, please get on there and say something. We've actually hit over 50 countries now listening to the podcast, which is for some reasons, well, for some reason, someone in Ghana listens in a regular basis. So if you're that person in Ghana, I'd love to know why you're even listening to this thing. So get in touch with me. I'd love to know what you're doing. But Shannon, thanks again. My name's Pete Liston. This is the Military Mindset for Business show. Out.